Alien Covenant is Ridley Scott's return back to the Alien franchise after his previous prequel in Prometheus. This film is kind of half Alien 2 and half Prometheus 2 in the way that it goes about telling its story. And very much the initial setup and the last act of the film are very much basically a retread of Alien in sort of a lazy way, though it's not terrible or anything. While the middle portion very much is very akin to Prometheus' style of creating more of a backstory to the alien lore, although I don't know if that's fully necessary. It also doesn't really line up with what we saw in the original Alien. Now, it's best to look at these two parts. Now, in the Prometheus part, there is some interesting elements, particularly this opening scene between Michael Fassbender and Guy Pearce, where they talk about the idea of the creator and the creation and their personal relationship between the two. This idea is further expanded on later in the film, as we also follow Fassbender as another android named Walter, who is somewhat reduced in his mental capabilities. This leads to some interesting stuff, but it never becomes overly compelling. In fact, there's some strange interactions in here. It too often is kind of this Michael Fassbender acting show, but it is quite good, and Fassbender is great in this movie. But it doesn't add up to something truly compelling. And there's one element that they use to seed this surprise later in the film that is so telegraphed, I don't see how anyone would think it was a surprise when it happens. The portion has some interesting ideas, but it never completely forms a cohesive, compelling whole, kind of like how most felt about Prometheus. I actually didn't hate Prometheus. I think it works all right, but this film suffers from just also its duality, because then it jumps back into the alien quite suddenly. The alien portion is problematic in like other alien sequels, like the terrible Alien vs. Predator movies. It does not create that likable ensemble of characters that we got in the original Alien or even in Aliens. More than half the ensemble here are cannon fodder, and a lot of their performances are pretty forgettable. The only real true standout is Danny McBride, who is, a way far out there weird choice to be in this movie. It's actually a pretty brilliant choice because he brings some natural humor to the film and also completely delivers in the dramatic scenes. Actually, I found his character compelling and I completely got invested in his story. There is also Katherine Waterston as basically Ripley replacement, and actually she gives a good performance, but the character never really goes beyond a certain point. It does very much feel like, okay, here's our Ripley for the film. She's just kind of the main girl. Waterston does a good job, but there really wasn't enough to the character, although this might be in part due to the lacking interactions due to how thin most of the other characters are in terms of the crew. Of course, then there is the alien action itself, which is not really frightening here at all. The scenes are done less horror, although there is some attempts at it, but they're never that effective. I'd say actually partially due to some of the CGI work. They're more of just kind of a space thriller, kind of a rote one, but, a good enough one. And I will say there is one pretty spectacular action scene near the end of the film featuring the alien. But strangely enough, the film kind of says like, oh, that was a great action scene. So they throw you another sequence that feels absolutely repetitive, and the problem is, it's way worse than the previous action sequence, so it makes it seem even more pointless, and given a revelation within the story, the sequence actually doesn't make sense with what certain characters do, and is actually just an odd scene altogether that they actually probably could have cut, other than that they were like, oh, this first climax was enough, we need another climax. Although that could be due to the pacing of the film, which is a little strange because of how it kind of wants to be both Alien, Prometheus, and a little bit of Aliens, in that there's certain scenes where it has really fast, rapid pace, and there's other ones where it's very slow, very methodical. But it doesn't stay consistent in this regard throughout the film, and there's some sequences like that, some sequences not like that. It's a complete mix. I don't think this film is a mess, though. There is, good things about it. It's like a good Alien knockoff more than a great Alien movie in and itself. If this was named something else, it still wouldn't be a great film, but it would technically be a better film than this stands within the other Alien films, particularly Alien and Aliens. Definitely a mixed bag, and that's why I give it 3 reels.